I'm always just like thinking about my home space, thinking about function and form and utility and beauty and all that. So tiny house is that. It's a little puzzle in itself. I'm really happy to be back in a city where I rent a spot for $750 a month, which is half to a third of what I would pay if I were renting an apartment. I think a lot of people move into tiny houses to be minimalist. I'm not. I've got a full-size closet, not something you see in a lot of tiny houses, so it works pretty well. The benefits of allowing for more tiny houses in communities, it's diversity of housing, it's urban density, it's allowing people who can't afford a conventional house to live in an area where there are more job opportunities. This is one of my favorite parts of the house is the Hi, I'm John. Welcome to my tiny house. So before I moved into my tiny house, I was living in a conventional house, living with a roommate. I'm a house manager and personal assistant. My employers warned me, we're going to move down to the South Sound in 2 to 7 years. And 2 months into that job, they said, we're moving now. So it was time to move down to the South Sound. And I thought, you know, this might be my time to take the leap to do a tiny house. I'm always just like thinking about my home space, thinking about function and form and utility and beauty and all that. So tiny house is that. It's a little puzzle in itself. People who had no building experience would say, you know, building a tiny house will drive you to the brink of insanity. You should definitely do it. And I thought, okay, I'm in it, I'm doing it. And I had planned to do that, and I had a lot of savings to build a tiny house. And then in 2020, my world was turned upside down. COVID hit. I was actually diagnosed with a disease. It's an autoimmune disease. And through that, my tiny house savings went to debt. My life is a little bit different than when I had initially thought about building a house on my own. So I thought, I'm gonna have a builder do it. The builder that built my house was Seattle Tiny Homes. It took about 10 months. I have a mortgage on the tiny house, so I put a large deposit down and now I'm paying monthly. One of the reasons I decided on a tiny house instead of a conventional house is affordability. So I live in Tacoma, Washington. I'm really happy to be back in a city where I rent a spot for $750 a month, which is half to a third of what I would pay if I were renting an apartment. And that includes my parking space, my water, sewer, and electric. That includes trash as well. I'm really optimistic about the future of tiny houses. I'm glad that Washington State has legalized them. The benefits of allowing for more tiny houses in communities, it's diversity of housing, it's urban density, it's allowing people who can't afford a conventional house to live in an area where there are more job opportunities. For a lot of us in the tiny house community, we've been saying like, regulate us so that we can exist, right? And it makes sense to me that if we're gonna park a tiny house in a densely populated neighborhood, that we want some sort of a system to ensure that it's done correctly, that it's sanitary, that this person hasn't just tried their hand at electrical and they're putting this tinder box in a densely, you know, populated neighborhood. Now that there's a legal pathway, I feel really optimistic, and I think more and more communities are officially legalizing them, and it's good to see that. Welcome to my tiny house. This is the outside. It's 8.5 feet wide by 24 feet long and 13.5 feet high. It's got a triple axle. The house is leveled, placed on cinder blocks for stable parking. It's got 4 jacks and stability points around it in addition to the cinder blocks. So I'm parked in the city and I'm in a driveway behind a house in a really cozy area with great neighbors. I really love it. I can walk anywhere I want in the city. I pay $750 a month to park it here, and that includes my water, sewer, and electric. So I'm pretty happy with that setup. So it's board and batten, and it's got cedar lap panel siding as an accent. I went with blue because I really like blue, and I thought the cedar was just a nice contrast to the blue, kind of harkens that Northwest feel. Another thing I really like about the house is there are a ton of great windows all around the house on both sides. And this is the garage. So I've got an on-demand hot water heater, so that's back here. And that is fed by propane. So it's the only component in the house that uses propane. And a tank like this will last me about 3 months. So it's pretty Costs about 20 bucks to fill, so showering for 3 months for 20 bucks works pretty well. And then here's my emergency ladder should I need to escape the house. I just need to run out of the house, go get the ladder, bring it upstairs, and then I can safely escape. So I've got water, sewer, and electric all included. I get my electric directly from the house. It's a 50 amp plug. Sewer ties right into the city sewer, and then I've got a water source around the back. I also have conventional wired internet run to the house. This is kind of a unique feature. The sole reason for this lap accent siding here is to hide the cable from this AC splitter compressor. When the house was being built, the common phrase I would use is I want it to look sleek and clean. And Todd, the builder at Seattle Tiny Homes, knew that I wasn't going to love the idea of a cable or conduit running up and down the house. So literally this paneling is to hide that cable, which I thought was a pretty nice thing, and he just threw that in for me. So thanks, Todd, I appreciate that. Additionally, he knew that I wasn't going to like this white compressor unit for the AC being shown, so he built me a little case that just goes around it. I just take this off if the house were to move, but all it is just a little accent. And so I chose to have a front door that opens out to save space on the interior. If it were to open in, it would whack the stairs and really cut down on space. So now that we've seen the outside, let me show you the inside. For me, it was really important that I have the living room on this end of the house because I like the feeling of walking in the door to a big open space. So I spend a lot of time in here. This is where I work. This is my work desk. This flips up here. I've been here 6 months, and so one of my dilemmas that I'm still trying to figure out is what to do with my TV, because I don't watch it when it's on the floor right there. I actually flip up my work desk and I place it up there when I want to watch it, and then I tuck it away when I'm all done. I'm looking to hopefully find some sort of a mount or an articulating arm that would allow it to go on the wall here and then lift up above the window when I want to watch it, but I don't think anything like that necessarily exists, so that's kind of a head scratcher. So any ideas on that, I would love to hear those. One of the things I knew that I wanted was, rather than a second loft, I wanted just a shelf, because I knew that I'd have all kinds of gear. I've got, you know, coolers up there, and in my coolers is where I store my extra toilet paper and paper towels. I've got tools of various sorts, bike working tools, woodworking tools, and camping stuff. I do a lot of outdoor activities, so I knew that I was gonna want storage space like that. So I also really like it because it doesn't feel very obtrusive with the really high ceilings. It actually, when I'm laying on the couch, actually kind of creates this little cozy nook feeling, and it's just sort of out of the way and really functional. The mini split is a heater AC unit, and it heats really well. I also have heated floors, but it stays relatively cool. This house is actually built with SIPS panels, structurally insulated panels, and they've got an extremely high R value. So this thing is pretty tight as far as insulation and even sound insulation. Pretty great, especially living in a city. The beams were one of a handful of upgrades that I chose when purchasing the house. I just thought that they looked really nice. I'm a big fan of sort of darker looking wood. The floor is meant to look like teak. It's LVP, and I like that sort of like on the darker side of the wood spectrum, and I thought that particular stain would look good against like a bright white paint, so I like the contrast there. I love the big windows, and in the summer I tend to open them more, and I can kind of, you know, they go up that way. They're top up, bottom down shades, and that way I can get a little bit of light in the house, but also have a little bit of privacy because I have neighbors kind of immediately on either side of me. So I also have this unique door configuration. It's actually called a venting side light. So this screen door opens, and then I can open the door and then have fresh air there. I had originally thought about having a little 1.5 French door. In hindsight, I'm actually quite a bit happier with this configuration because while it's nice to open a French door and just have this wide open space, I probably wouldn't have used that as much as I use this, because this is great in the summer, just getting, you know, a breeze in here. All right, next I'll show you the kitchen. I like to cook. I cook a lot. I have an autoimmune disease, so eating whole food and stuff like that is important to me. So I'm constantly making yogurt and rice mixes and, you know, cooking most of my meals. And I've got a little 2-burner cooktop, and it works pretty well. One of the things you learn though when you kind of move to a different kitchen configuration is when you cook on a conventional range and you finish your cooking, you have your hot pan, you just move it over to the next burner. So I realized, oh, what am I gonna do? So these silicone pads are here all the time for hot pans and things like that. And then this is my microwave convection oven, so it does both, and it works pretty well. I'm getting the hang of it. I bake egg bakes and pizzas and all that sort of stuff, and then use it for conventional microwaves, so I'm pretty happy with that. This is one of my favorite parts of the house, is the color of my cabinets. I had seen tiny houses online over the years as I had looked with sort of an aqua or turquoise or teal color, and I thought, ooh, I want that. That was something I knew that I wanted for years. And I really like the contrast with the butcher block countertop. I installed some under cabinet lighting. I'm a big fan of kind of low lighting in the house and accent lighting, kind of warm light. So this is something that, it's a nice little touch for me. Big farmhouse sink. I think it looks really nice. I intentionally asked them to go above the line of the counter just because I feel like it brings it out as a little accent piece in itself. In all the decisions you make when you're moving into a house, I was thinking about what do I do for my dish draining, and I went with this particular dish pad that it has a stone, I guess it's called diatomaceous earth, and it's meant to absorb water really quickly, and it works actually shockingly well. So it's pretty key for keeping kind of the rotation of wet dishes going, but also in a tiny house where you're concerned about, you know, moisture buildup. It's really effective, so I'm pretty happy with that. I think they call this an apartment fridge, I think is the term for the style fridge, but it's a good size. You know, I've got freezer on top, and it, you know, right now it's probably a little bit bare compared to what I have. I need to go grocery shopping soon, but it gives me plenty of space for what I need. I'm very happy with it. And they actually, in certain cases with a house, because the wheel well comes into the house, because the house is built over the wheel well, they need to account for that. So if you look in certain cabinets, you'll see a little, you know, piece of wood, which is actually the wheel well. In this case, they got pretty creative and built on top. So they put cabinets down here for extra storage. So they did a really nice job of using every space to create more storage and utility. Then we've got this shelf up here. Originally, I was planning on putting all my dishes up on that shelf, but when the build happened, I didn't realize how tall it was gonna be. But I've just got a variety of things, mostly cooking related. I've got toaster and bowls and pots and things like that. And this is my library in front of the loft. The railing was set back, and I was wondering what I would do with my books. I had to get rid of a lot of books, so this is sort of what's stayed for now. I kind of like the idea of the way the railing is laid out. Some people choose to do a solid wall to close off their loft, and sometimes that's because that's where their clothes is stored. I have sort of a halfway thing going where you can see through it, but I've tried to block a little bit of it with plants, and I do have some small storage cabinets up there, and just some things that I've collected from my travels over the years. On the other side of the kitchen is my dressing area, my washer dryer, my closet. This is a combo washer dryer unit, and it works really well. People always ask me about that because everybody's heard the horror stories. Some of it's true. You do need to do a lot of small loads, and that's what I found. So it takes a while to dry. My biggest thing is when I wash my sheets, it's like kind of an all-day process. So that's pushing it because I have a queen size bed. But as long as I'm doing like half loads in there, and when I wash, and then I tend to hang dry a lot of things anyway, so the dry loads go a little bit longer than your conventional dryer would dry them, but it works really well. This was also something that I altered from their existing configuration of this model house. In the design, they had the washer dryer here, and then this was gonna be a desk, and I thought, I don't really want to feel, even though I do work from home some days, I don't really want to feel kind of like crammed in here in the kitchen. I just felt like it would be too tight a space for a desk, and I decided that I wanted to go with a closet instead. So I had them put a closet here and move the washer dryer over, but I've got a full-size closet, not something you see in a lot of tiny houses, so it works pretty well. So I do a lot of different like outdoor activities, and I do have a lot of clothes. I think a lot of people move into tiny houses to be minimalists, and I'm not. I don't want to overconsume, but I definitely don't want to have like 3 outfits. So I do have a lot of clothes. I do have a lot of gear, and so it's all kind of packed in here. And so far I think I found a system where all the sort of similar gear and clothing are with one another. And then I've got little nooks and crannies, like I keep my, potatoes and onions here, and backup waters and in there, and there's little hidden gems in there. There's all kinds of different configurations for stairs. Sometimes you'll see people have doors that close the storage in, or you'll see stairs that flip up. For me, this was their kind of set model, and I just liked it. I went with it. One of the things that I did opt for was to go without a railing on the staircase, which is like, maybe dangerous, but so far so good. I just try to be really careful on the stairs because they are a little bit different dimensions than your typical staircase. For me personally, the reason I did that is I just thought it looked nicer. I don't like a lot of visual clutter. I didn't want to be walking through and bang my shoulders on a handrail. So I went with that option, and I'm pretty happy with it because I think the stairs might actually be my favorite part of the entire house. They also advised me when choosing colors, they said that they could paint these, which I think are called kickers, maybe? I'm not sure if that's the right term. But I chose to go with white because, again, I like that white wood contrast. They just warned me that they are going to get scuffed up a lot, and I'll be cleaning them a lot. And so far that's been true, even though I do have a no shoes policy, especially when going up the stairs. But it's worth it to me because I think they're beautiful. And the last place to show you on the first floor is the bathroom. Okay, so this is the bathroom. I'm hooked into sewer, so I have a conventional flush toilet. I actually have a bidet on there. My main rationale is that I save on toilet paper. In a tiny house, every inch counts. So using things like reusable paper towels, a bidet, and that sort of thing really helps save a lot of space. We were going to do a medicine cabinet behind the mirror, but because this is SIPS panels, the concern was if we cut into the wall, we'd be too close to the outside. We'd start to get, it wouldn't insulate as well. We'd start to get moisture build up and mold. So my builder came up with a pretty clever idea, which was to put medicine cabinet behind the closet door. It's kind of a barn door, closet door. I also am a big fan of the way this turned out because I think a lot of barn doors just look a little bit more rustic than the look I was going for. I'm looking for like sleek and clean. And so I think we achieved that with a shaker style closet door. And then I have a shower here with a pretty good sized tub. It's obviously not a full tub, but I could get in there and take baths. And then I went with glass tile in the shower. The shower tiles were actually a housewarming gift from my parents. Sale Tiny Homes allowed me to provide my own tile. This wasn't something that they had in stock, but I chose this and I thought it was a pretty cool color. So it's also one of my favorite parts of the house. The nice thing about having a bathtub, even though I don't typically take a lot of baths, is it's a good utility spot. I can wash off gear. If I were to ever get a pet, that would be a good place to wash a pet, So the last place to show you is the loft. So this is my loft. This is where I sleep. The nice thing about the loft is I've kind of adhered to that idea that your sleeping space is only for sleeping. This is a queen bed. The bed is directly on the floor. Still just being 6 months in the house, I'm not fully sure if I'm gonna get away with that, meaning, there is a potential risk of mold. The mattress is also a hybrid mattress, so it's part spring, part memory foam, and those are supposed to breathe a little bit better. But so far so good in terms of keeping, mold and moisture at bay. I have enough headroom for the most part. It is a little bit tight. Making a bed is no small endeavor. But again, I'm pretty much just sleeping here. So headroom is definitely limited, but it worked for me. And then that window opens, and then the window over here opens, so I can get a cross breeze. I really like that small window. It's another point where I can bring light into the space. And then of course I can pull shades down, and these are blackout shades up in the loft, so I can make sure I can minimize any light coming through. And then I have my plants there, which are both just nice to look at, but they also give a little bit of a visual break and make me feel like I have this sort of a natural sense of separation between the rest of the house and the loft. When I walk in my house, I feel content. I feel at peace. It's something that I had wanted for years, and I had a vision of what it would look like, and it's come to fruition. Words of advice for somebody who's going to go tiny is something that I heard a lot, which is just do it. You'll find little creative ways to make a small space work, which for me was part of the fun. It's a puzzle. I really enjoy making a tiny house work and finding the most sort of efficient way to put things. I feel like I have sort of a sweet spot of form and function. They did a remarkable job with my house, so I feel like I'm living in a piece of art. So I'm really appreciative of that, and yet it's cozy and comfortable.
Thanks for watching this week's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you soon with another unique home tour.